Okay, so you can have a look before you continue. So the challenge is this thing, these two areas. How do we shift this section of the project with this one? So it's a bit advanced, but once you understand this, you are able to achieve this thing, you are going to be good. At first glance, what you could think of is to use a table, right? A table with 2 columns and 1 row. And then you have your stuff here, and then the other stuff here. And after that, all you have to do is just remove the border of the table. And you have the same structure. You get that? That's the one way. The other way is you create a container for this section. So apart from the main container you can have, okay, then you create a div to contain this section like this. So you use a div to create like a box for this, and you get another div to create a box for this. Now you have 2 elements to align. By default, these 2 divs will be blocked, so you get them like this. So the rest is, if you change their display into inline, then they will become like this. You see the idea? So you go ahead with the table idea. So you have a table with 2 TDs. The first TD will contain all this, and the second TD will contain this. And then you have a feeling of what it is. Now we will see the problem, which is related to using the phone. And then we'll move on to this example and how to achieve that together. Of course, we'll do this together again, and then we'll quickly jump to the other aspect as well. Okay? Yes. Let's try to do this one very quickly. So I'll create a new folder, which I'll call, so let's say home work 2. I'll call it work 2. Because I had another one called work. So work 2. I'll get a picture. The way I flow with the work, don't feel bad about it, because it's 19 years of practice of HTML. You see, so over time yours too will flow like that. And I even see that you flow already. You flow a lot. And one thing is, even if you don't want to use programming as a field, a profession, you can use this as a tool of meditation. Yes, it can become like a tool of meditation because it's logic. And as you continue to reason logically, your neural connections start to unlock and lock. I don't know if you understand that. Yeah. Because our intelligence, our brain is about neural connections. The more connections we get, the more intelligent we become. So every time you think and you feel like it's hurting inside, it means some neural connections are trying to be established to create that intelligence. That's why you feel the headache. Right. So people give up there, and the connection stops, and you lose that. So by reasoning logically, always trying to bring logic, it creates more connections and complex connection. It's based on that. Today we have what we call artificial intelligence, because they created this kind of virtual neurons, which also, through the information we feed to the computer, it will try to create new connections, which is new intelligence. That's how we have artificial intelligence. So if you decide to think logically from time to time, every single day you sit down, you think logically, you write code, over time you start to realize some reasoning become like common sense to you, while people struggle to think about it. Yeah. So here we go. We have 1 hour. Let's do something. So I'll open my index.html with my text editor. If you are set, we can start writing the code. Mm-hmm. Are you there? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll bring my HTML boilerplate. HTML. Then I will say my profile. I start in my profile. And then automatically I will start linking. I I'll put the link because I know definitely I will need some CSS, right? So I do link and I'll call that CSS stars.css as well. So stars.css. So automatically I'm announcing to my HTML document that I will have a file called stars.css that will be linked to it. At this stage, if I don't create the CSS file, nothing will happen. So the HTML will just ignore it, this line, okay? So in order to satisfy that, I'll create the file at the same time. I'll just do new file and say stars.css, right? So now this link is going to be valid because the document will see the stars. So to make sure I am right, let me go inside the stars and create my first CSS star that I will give to the body tag. And the only thing I will do is to change the background color into tomato. So I'll make my background color tomato. So basically, if I now open my index.html with my favorite text editor, web browser, so I will get a page like that, blank, because we have nothing in the body yet. You have the same result? Let me show. Okay, make sure that the stars.css is in the same folder as the index.html. So mouse over on each file to see their location. It's inside project 1. Now we have our page linked to our CSS, and we haven't written any HTML yet in our index file, right? Let me close the other files I had. So we have it clean. Okay. So let's go now inside our body tag. We'll always start with the main tag, right? To be the main container so that we can be able to shift the whole content whenever we need. It doesn't matter if we decide later we don't want, it should be there, it's mute. It doesn't have any effect until we style it. So we should have the habit of having it, okay? So under the main tag now, we want to have two areas like this, right? So we'll create two different divs like this. Sorry, I'm making it cap, so we'll do div. Okay. Then I will have another div under that. So each one of these divs, so the first line of div will be for this section, will contain this section. The other div will contain this section. That's the idea, right? Okay. So now, once that's done, we'll go inside the first div and try to fill the content we have. The first content being our image, and second one being the other. So let me start by inserting img src. My image is called bool.jpg. Right? Good. After the image, I have name. So the name, profession, location, other things, I'll put them inside some tag. Maybe I'll call them strong. So I'll put the name inside strong. So I'm going to write vanilla engineer, okay, as my name. Then I'll write another strong under it. I didn't add any br. I just wrote strong because as much as we can, we should avoid using the BRs anyhow because they don't have any particular meaning. And whatever a BR can do, we can still achieve the same thing with CSS. So profession. So that's software developer or web developer. So I create another strong. Okay, location, I write Accra. Then I add another strong for the telephone number, strong. And then the telephone number, I'm going to write 05555 55555, something like that. So in the first div, we have this. That gives us our first section. Okay. So you have the left part of the project. Are you there too? Yeah. Man, I told you are going to be a fast typer in code. So we go ahead again. We go now at the right side, right? And then we enter the term biography and we put it inside H1. The word biography. We put it inside H1. So we will say my biography. Biography. So under the H1, we are now going to insert a paragraph. And that paragraph, we just fill it with some lorem ipsum text. And that is it. So basically, we have structured our HTML. Let me shift that. It looks well indented. So you have the same thing. Yeah. Now let's preview and see what we have. Good. So basically, like any normal HTML, it will flow. This is called the default flow. The document default flow. It flows like this until we use the styling to force it, change its flow. Okay, so let's start. First thing first, based on what we see there, it seems the two of them should share the screen half-half, right?
Yeah, I don't have my image on it.
Your image, the image is not showing?
No.
Is it in the folder?
Oh,
Let's see.
no.
Let's check the folder first. So it should be inside file now. There's no image, so you need to go inside the document. Get it from there. So when an image is not showing like this, probably it is not in the folder, or it is not in the same folder as the file, or the name is not well written, or the extension, something is missing. So usually these are the challenges related to images, right? So now what I want us to do is, the first div here, right? We said this guy is a div, and this guy too is a div. And we want to be able to give them half of the screen. So we'll give them 50%, 50%. But if we go in our CSS and we write div, and then we say weight, is DTH, right? 50%. We do this. We are saying every single div in the page should be 50% width. So in our case, we have only 2 divs. It shall be fine. But in the case where we have many, it will become a challenge. So what I would like us to do is to give this div a class, and this guy to a class, or a 90. So we give them a class. And this one will have the class of, let's say, left. And this one will have the class of, let's say, right. That way we can go in our CSS and do dot left. Now we can go in our CSS and create a class dot left. So which means whatever we write here will apply to only this guy, because it's the one bearing the class left.
Okay.
And we'll do the same thing with the right. So we'll create another class right, and then we write our CSS. And whatever we write here will be applied to only this guy. So that gives us the freedom of styling them independently. So let's give it a try and see what we have. So we go to the HTML, right? The first div, this div here. So we'll give it an attribute class. And the attribute, the class will be called left. Left. You got it?
Yeah.
Small. So we go to the next div. So let me make some space here. We go to the next div here. We write now class again. We give it an attribute of class and we say right. Like human right. Right. So we have the 2 divs now having separate classes. So now we can go to the CSS again. Since we are having personalized custom classes, so we start their name with dot. These are not HTML tags, right? So we do left. and we'll create the other one too for right. So right. Good. Now we can start styling each one of them. The first thing we are going to do is to set their weight to 50%. Okay. So the left and right, we make them weight 50%. Like this. Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay. So to that, we are also going to add some border to them so that we can see where they stand. So we'll add border, not border bottom tab, it's just border. So border, we will say 1 pixel, solid and white. Since we are on tomato, white will be sharper. So we'll do the same thing for the right. With this, we'll be able to see where they stand very well and know what to do next. Okay? So we can refresh our browser to see what we have. Alright. Since we are getting something. So the first block, the first div. Let me see. There's something I'm not getting there. It seems the image, where is it? It's inside left, right? Okay, it is there. Let me do something here. Okay, because the image is big, so it's kind of overflowing the block. You see, my image is going beyond that border. Okay, the image is, I don't know if you have noticed the problem I'm encountering here. You see, when you give the, let's increase the border of the boxes from 1 pixel to, let's say, 3 pixels, okay? And then I will change, in my case, I'll change the color into red so that it will become more obvious. Now let's refresh and see. Good. Look at it on the board. You see the first block, the image has crossed that block. The image has crossed, which is a very bad behavior. Normally, the image should be able to follow the container, which is the div in which the image is. Whatever the size of that block, the image should always go proportionally to it. If it has to flow out, it is bad. So in order to solve this problem, this is what you do. You write a small CSS for the image on top. So you say img, like this, for the image. And you say weight 100%. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, when we say that, look at what will happen. So the image now came back to its container and said, yes, I shouldn't go beyond, I should be 100% of the container. But in our case, that's not necessarily the real size of the image. So to solve the problem definitely is, you write now max width. Instead of width, you say max width. So this is saying the maximum width the image can take is 100% of the container, which means it should never cross the container, no matter how big the image is. So if we refresh, the image comes in because it is big enough to cover the container, so it stays inside the container.
So for mine, take up the whole page.
Let me see. Woo! Let's see. It means there's something wrong with the container. The left 50%. Okay, make it max weight instead of weight. So you add max dash. Dash. Wait, okay, save it and let's see. We are starting. Good. Now let's see your HTML.
On the right side. Or we don't want the right.
Oh, we don't need it. Our projector. Okay. You have class left. Did you save it? Press Command S. Yes, it wasn't saved. When the file is not saved, you see that this place will have a bullet. Let me show you. You see, a bullet is shown.
Okay.
So when you save, the bullet will go, and now you see the cross. Now you can apply and cross. So So you have the same thing. Now, in your case, your image is not too big, so it doesn't even reach here. But in my case, because it's too big, it will even go beyond this box. But since we said the maximum width the image can take is this container, so it will stay inside. And this solves the problem. Right? So now, we can go ahead. We have shared the space into two. They are all now 50% weight, 50% weight. Okay? That's 50% of the full screen, of course. Now, how do we get them to display in parallel? That's the thing. So, there are many ways of doing that. Okay? So the first thing we can do is we say the left block, we say it should float. You see, normally they stack on top of each other like this, right?
Yeah.
And we say, no, leave the stack and start floating in the air, right? And we say the float should go at the left. It should float at the left. Okay? And if you refresh, something happened. It shifted a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Something reacted. Now let's add the float to the right one as well. So float, this time around we say right. Seems we are getting there. Something happened. Now they are trying to go like this. But unfortunately, since we divide them by 50%, 50%, this is more of mathematics. I broke my mic like yesterday. This time around, it didn't get addressed. Okay. So this is a mathematic problem. This is the full screen, right?
Yeah.
If we divide it to 50%, 50%, we'll get this. That's including even this space. So if you have to put them here, they have to give out some space. Each one of them has to give out a little bit of space so that they will get to have a border together. I think this doesn't make sense. Let me repeat it again.
Okay.
This is the problem. If you have two cubes like this, two cubes, okay, that you want to put in one box, mathematically, the weight of this cube, the weight of this cube is the sum of the weight of this one and this one, right?
Okay.
Minus something. I shouldn't do mathematics to confuse you here. Okay, what I'm trying to say is this. Let me find some real example. Okay, if I have these two phones, okay, and I need to put them in a box. Let's assume this is the box, and I need to put them like this. If the box weight was exactly from here to here, the two phones will not go. I have to add some extra weight to the box.
Right.
You get that? Or if I can't add the extra weight to the box, like in our case, we cannot increase our screen size. We cannot stretch the screen because we said 50% of whatever size the screen is. So what we can do rather is to cut off small this phone and cut off small this phone, or we cut off plenty of this phone and leave this one. So basically the 50% we gave to this one and this one, we have to cut off small here and cut off small. So maybe we can give this one 49%, this one 49%. Now they will get to fit inside the box and be without disturbing each other because the weight is extra.
Right.
That's why they can't go like this. So if we cut a little bit here and cut a little bit of this guy, then they will fit now. That's the challenge we are having. Thank you for your phones. I'm like a professor at Harvard. I use everything for examples. So we now change the weight, the 50% weight into 49%, 49%, and see what we get. Boom. There we go. Wonderful, right? Did it work?
Yeah.
You got the same thing.
Yeah.
So indeed, I can go to Harvard and teach because my mathematics are kind of getting matured. Yes, I was so bad in mathematics at school.
Yeah.
Oh man, oof. The kind bad I was, we cannot even qualify it with words. It's so bad. So we have this set. So the next thing we can do is to go and start this, the name, our name, vanilla engineer, software developer, and all this. And what we can do, we notice that all of them are inside strong tag, strong tag, strong tag, strong tag. Since the strong tag is an inline tag, that's why all the elements started following each other. So it means if we change them into block, automatically they'll go to the next line like this. You see that thing? So we'll choose the start tag, we'll go and take the strong tag in our CSS and write strong. And then we write display. It should become block. Yes. So we write display block. We can go now and preview our work, and we can see now everything is going to the next line. Good, right? Yeah. You see, it's quite easy. You didn't even need any BR. You need to understand that principle that an inline tag can become a block tag and vice versa. That's what we did yesterday. We reverted it. We took block tags and changed them into inline tags for our menu. You remember that? Yeah. So we did the opposite today. So now the next thing we are going to work on is to go back to the image tag. Okay? The image tag, we want the weight to be squared so that we can get to round it. So we'll make weight to be, let's say, 200 pixels. That was the unit I used yesterday.
Still working.
Oh. And the height too,
The Windows.
we make it 200 pixels as well.
The Windows 7 Apple machine, is it working?
Do you remember the function we used to make it round?
I want to buy the Mac.
You want to buy the Mac?
Radius something?
I want to buy the charger, but all the charger we are trying was not.
It was border radius.
There's a for somewhere else.
I don't know what that's from.
Radius.
Because last I used some student.
So we add that function to our image.
So I don't know if
Now there's the other particular charger for
So border.
No, but it's a Chinese charger they are bringing.
Chinese.
Something. Now, I sometimes.
So we make it 50% like yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Like their head is not like
Boom.
this.
And we get our
It's a
image
Chinese,
around
that's
there.
why I didn't want to say that.
I think I made my image 100%, 100 pixels.
Check the voltage and cut this one.
100 over
Mount it
100
on a different charger.
Now, the left class,
Do you understand what
the
that
left class, let's align the text there at the center. So we'll go to the left class, we'll add text align because we want them to come in the middle like this. So we add text
No, the
align.
connection will be difficult, but where is that the
Text
first
align.
start from? If it were to be here, rather,
Then
like you
center.
check the voltage of this one. If you find this normal chargers to check the same, whether they are the same voltage.
And we have it.
Then you cut it and connect it to the normal charger. But where it started from. What's the voltage?
You got the same result? Good. So now we can get rid of the borders on the left and then the right. And we can have our plain page.
And if you
Exactly
charger,
as
let me see
we
that
expected.
No, I mean, like, if you don't get charger,
Crazy?
let me see that become useless.
It's a game after all. When you click on a line like this, you just press Command X. No, when the cursor is on the line, Command X now. Good. It will take the full line. Command X.
I-12 Pro is this. It's not iPhone, it's Android
So
phone.
the key word today in this exercise to remember is the
It's not even
float,
up to 4 million. It's 3 something.
float
So
function.
I'm trying to read more about
Okay.
it.
The key word here is float function.
Yeah, this is it.
So the rest is more of formatting your text, changing your font size, giving colors.
Samsung.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
That guy is
Yeah.
rich now.
So for example now, if you want to see this line, okay, you write finish. You write finish. Are you done?
Yeah.
So for example, I added some dotted line here, right? If you want to have that line, we have two chances of doing it.
The, font
The reason is this.
to the extent is
we have these two blocks like that, right? So each of them have a border at the left. This one has a border at the left. This one too has a border at the right side. So we can just decide to say the border right of this guy here, this block, border right, should be dotted or dashed. And we get that line. Or we can say border left of this second box should be dotted. So let's give it a try and see. So let's go to the left CSS, the left element. So we say border right. The border right of the left element is the border right of it. Okay. So we give it 1 pixel solid, and we make it dashed. Oh no, sorry. It's border 1 pixel dashed, and then we give it a color. So then we make it. Let me make my case black. Good. And we get that. So you see, it shows. So we could have done the opposite. We go to the right one. We say the border left should be dashed.
It didn't show up for me.
Let me see. So the 1 pixel, we wrote L. CSS. You see, that's one problem. It will not talk. You should have said error somewhere. Nothing. It will just be there, mute. Other programming languages like JavaScript, C++, they will give you errors.
VBA.
They will let you VBA. No, we are not talking of VBA. VBA is nothing. The VBA people should come and talk. We will not talk about it. Right? But it's a powerful language. VBA is a very powerful language. Because banks don't trust anything than VBA. That's the thing.
People are still using Internet Explorer.
So you can see, I believe if you continue to practice
It's very good, but
this,
if you don't know, because
practice, by the time you realize you're a very good front-end guy.
it become
Because I'm feeling that through this exercise, you are having the ability, it's easy for you now to write. At least you don't think again of writing the skeleton.
No.
You see that? That's what makes me happy. You see, I feel that it is having impact. Yes. So, keyword today, float. That's what we learned in this exercise. This allows us now to position our elements. But, trust me, this is just the tip of the whole iceberg of what we call positioning elements in CSS. Positioning in CSS. This is a little tip, even an old tip. This is an old iceberg. You know, so we have other elements that we use to do professional positioning on professional website. But this is still valid. You just need to know the behavior and control it. Okay? And you are good to go. Right? I don't like to be taboo like on certain topic, like say, okay, this is too old. We don't use that anymore. No. Everybody uses what he masters. This is the best way. If you master float, perfect. Use it. It will work. Because the user will never visit your website to look at it and see this is float or not. It doesn't matter. Good. So apart from the floating thing, we have other things like what we call this flex box. Okay, we call it CSS flex. We have CSS grid. CSS grid. Then we have the positioning itself. Positioning. So in this case, you use a function called position. Okay, you change the position and other things. So do not. This is just as a reference, a footnote. Okay, this is a footnote. You can write it one day when you feel like researching and going beyond yourself. You can go ahead. I just want you now to be able to have your hands on the basic CSS stuff. From there, we can complicate our lives. So the whole art of positioning elements on web pages is called positioning. But we still have a CSS function called position that you can use to also do the positioning, like the name sounds. Okay. So